Hi, this is Anika, and I am recording for the Excellence in Online Teaching Award 2025 walkthrough. I will start with Guideline 5.1. So Guideline 5.1 is the explanation of instructor um, feedback and interaction. So the first place where you can find some of these expectations explained is actually in the welcome pop-up on Lamaku. So that information is explained here. It's also explained in the syllabus. So here's the syllabus in the content tab. 1 second, I'll show you where that is. So here I have information about how I prefer to be communicated with. So via email, specific boundaries around email use. They can also book an appointment with me. So if they want to chat with me online, face-to-face, or online live, sorry, they can do that. And that is a choice that a lot of my students actually make. Also, if you scroll down, it has information about how I will return their work. So there's actually a grading schedule, and this tells them when they'll get assignments back. So for example, today I'll be grading the 8-week optional forum for my Psych 100 class. It also has information about how I will get work back for them. And if we go down here, they can actually submit a form if they have late work that they would like to submit to me. So Guideline 5.2 is all student interaction expectations are explained. And I actually have a communication policy and a privacy policy in my syllabus. So if we scroll down a bit, here's my communication policy. So we have 4 main principles. Students do not speak over others, speak without evidence, use ad hominems, negate others' experience. And there's also a privacy policy as well. So both of those sort of explain how I expect students to communicate with one another and with me. So the guideline 5.3 is that the course's opportunities for regular and substantive interaction. Students receive feedback on all of their work within 1 week. You can see that here in my grading schedule, so they can actually see when they're getting feedback. I also send out regular announcements to my students, and I comment on discussions so that I can continue the conversations that they're having with one another. Next is Guideline 5.4. The course has activities and/or opportunities that builds community. I have multiple opportunities for students to interact with one another and to just sort of build course culture. So the first place, sort of informal place, is through Community Oasis. This is actually a Padlet where they can talk to one another about things that help them to relax. Here we go. Things that help them to relax, things that make them laugh, that sort of thing. So just scroll through a little bit of it. And it's an extremely well-used Padlet. So I believe it has over 400 posts at this point. Let's see if it loads. So for example, things that are on my mind. So students will share things with one another on this board. So that's sort of an informal way of interacting. There's also multiple ways of chatting with each other via discussions. So for example, we start with a 2 truths and a lie discussion. And then they also communicate with one another via the forums. So Guideline 5.5 is the course's opportunities for student-to-student interaction. There's also multiple opportunities for students to interact. I just discussed a few of them. So they have the Community Oasis board, and then they have their forums. One of those forums, the Group Apocalypse Forum, is actually an assignment where they have to work together as an entire class to pick specific people to survive a killer hamster plague. And then they actually use this discussion that they have as a full group and they analyze it for different social constructs that we talk about, like conformity, de-individuation, that sort of thing. So that tends to be a really good group bonding exercise, and they tend to get very into that assignment. For the last guideline, for Guideline 5, the course has learning activities that promote interaction and support active learning. All of my assignments are meant to engage students actively in actually applying the content. So for example, That assignment that I was just discussing with you, they have a list of different possible survivors that have limited information, and they work together to decide what questions to ask me, yes or no questions, to get in more information about those potential survivors. And they pick together as a class. And they decide which ones they want to save. So that often brings out some really interesting conversations that they can analyze later. But that's a way for them to actually apply what they learned in social psychology rather than just reading about it in the textbook. Each of these other assignments also has a sort of um, similar kind of lean. So, for example, Form 3, there's a memory contest where they try to memorize as many digits of pi as possible, and then they recite them on Padlet. And then they analyze the technique they used and they apply it to some other situation. So all the assignments are meant to actually help them apply content. All right, so that's my application for the Excellence in Online Teaching Awards. I appreciate your time.